Good evening. Welcome to Laurie Rinker Golf Live. I'm pleased to be joined tonight by my little sister, Laurie Rinker, two-time LPGA Tour winner. We won the 1985 J.C. Penney Classic together. How you doing, Laurie?
I'm doing great. It's great to be on your show tonight.
Well, thanks. Always great to have you on, and it's always great to have players on and talk to them about what they've been working on and things they're doing. What have you been working on in your game lately?
Well, what you call early turn from the top, which gets the club behind me, gets me in a bad position to hit the ball. So I've been working on letting the club release and trying to move properly.
Well, that is something, a lot of people struggle with. And, I see that every day. And, it's something that, we see people demonstrating turning right away. Our mentor, Bob Toski, always said lateral motion precedes rotary motion, didn't he?
He did, for sure.
So it's just interesting to me how, we see all these people that are, turn. It's all about turning, and really there's a lateral motion that should start the downswing. And a lot of people are, trying to turn early from the top, and it really doesn't work very well. Laurie Rinker Golf Live's on Thursday nights, 7:30, 8 p.m. Eastern. Joined tonight by my new book is out, The Journeyman. You can get that at LarryRinker.com. And there is my sister, Laurie, two-time LPGA Tour champion. And if you want to take a lesson from her down in Stuart, Florida, you can go to her website, LaurieRinker.com, and you can learn more about what she's doing. But, Laurie, talking about the golf swing, if I bring up V1 and we share V1 and just look at some swings. Here's a gentleman I've been working with the last few, probably a little over a month now. And I call this kissing cousins, where somebody turns early and they get too far forward with their body. So you can see you don't really want to be this far forward with your body hitting a driver and the head being that far forward, do you? So you look where he's at, and then you look where he's at address here, and it's quite different, isn't it?
Wow. Does he hit it to the right?
No, he does a pretty good job of squaring it. But it's interesting, if I just bring up me, he's upper core like me. But if I bring me up and show you me at impact, you can see how my lower body is nowhere near as far forward as his is at impact. You can see my upper body and look where my nose is. It's interesting. If you look where my nose is and you look where his nose is at impact, and then we show where they're at address, his nose is much further forward at impact right here. And yet my nose is behind and up because I'm jumping. So I say it's kissing cousins, whereas if somebody turns early, they probably get forward with their body coming into the ball, and body rotation is going to make the face more open, and someone getting laterally too much in the forward swing is also going to do what? It's going to make that path more to the right, and will make the club face more open as well, won't it?
That's exactly right.
So him staying behind the ball, there's 4 of the 5 senses right here in our head. 5th is the hands and touch, but the nose is right in the middle of it. And I'm always telling my students, hey, just keep your nose, try and keep that nose behind the ball. But somebody trying to turn, you see this all the time, don't you?
Yes. And that's going to produce right and left shots, which doesn't make it much fun to play golf.
Well, it's interesting to me what you brought up, and we talked briefly about it before we started the show. But, when we look at you from, this was about 2 years ago now, but I think you get a little early turn there with the body for you, and that gets you just a little bit out of sync as a mid-core player. This gets a little ahead of your arms and hands.
Are you
And
putting
you
the
got a
V1?
good pair of hands, but then you've got to kind of save it here, don't you?
Do you have the V1 video up?
I thought I did, but I guess I don't. I got to share the screen, don't I?
Yes, you do.
It would help if I shared this screen so you can see what I'm talking about. So here you are at the top, and you can see how that left hip's kind of early turning, and you end up getting your hands and arms behind your chest, don't you?
Yes, I'm definitely trying to save it from there.
Right. So there you come in. And then I think that's why, you have beautiful extension, but that's probably why your release ends up being a little earlier, and you might want it right there as a mid-core player.
Yeah, that definitely is a little earlier. I'd like a little shaft lean at that point.
Yeah. And you don't quite have right there at impact. It's almost as if the club's past your left arm slightly there. And you would probably like to see your left arm a little more here and the shaft
Yes,
a little more here.
definitely I would.
And your hands just so if your hands could just be a little bit more forward there. We talk about that a lot with upper core players. We see that a lot. I mean, I'm upper core, and you'll see there I am at address and there I am at impact. So if I put a circle around my left hand and show it at impact, you can see how it's forward. And even though I'm upper core, I'm hitting that golf ball with the shaft not up to the left arm yet.
Right. You still have a little shaft lean there.
Yeah, and that's huge, isn't it?
Yes. If you want solid contact, that's a good thing to have there.
Well, and also it's really the role of this left arm, and this left arm keeping speed coming into the ball here. Our mentor Bob Toski always talked about the way the left arm moves, right? That's what's going to keep the ball from going where, Laurie?
Left.
Left.
I don't like to see.
And don't you feel that really good golfers want to feel like they're really releasing it and it's not going left?
When I've played my best, I felt like I was releasing as hard as I could. And at most, I'd get a little draw,
Right.
which I always play for a little draw. I always aim a little right and pull it a little or draw it a little, get it to the target.
Yeah. And if I bring this V1 up again here. So for people, if your body rotations are getting ahead, so let's just, let's show this drill. But if the body rotations are getting ahead, so the chest is getting ahead. Let me show another video here that I think will show it better. These are really the keys for the upper core swing. But you can see this right here, Laurie, second kryptonite early turn. And that's really what we're talking about, aren't we?
Yes, that's what we're talking about.
And so that's the people that are trying to lag and rotate right there, right?
Yes.
Lag and rotate. And they've been told that because they're upper core and they release early, which is okay. But we get taught that, hey, we need to do this. And anytime these body rotations get ahead of the arms and the club, where's that club face going to be?
They're going to be in the right field.
You're going to be, as Dad said to you once at the mixed team, need to go out and buy a compass so we can find Larry's tee shots tomorrow. So, but the interesting thing is, even though you're mid-core, and we're going to get in and explain mid-core and upper core here in a minute, but even though you're mid-core, the The remedy is for you to feel using your arms, hands, and wrists to swing this club past your chest. That's the feel, and start drawing again, isn't it?
Yes.
And so
Start the
this,
ball a little bit right at the target and draw, or on the target and draw.
and so what I do is I do this, and I just contort people's bodies here, where I have them aim their feet to the right, which we call a closed stance, and even twist the feet away from the target a little bit. And now I'll just make a little half swing with a wedge and feel the arms and hands rotating and going past the chest and pulling you around.
Right.
You know, and that all of a sudden now you can draw the ball. So anybody that's struggling with a slice, do this drill. Jack Nicklaus talked about keeping the back at the target as long as you could. And he felt like he started letting his club head go right from the top, letting it go. Now you're still going to square the club face. You still got to have an awareness of squaring that club face at impact. But really, you know, that's what you're doing. And I have this video, Laurie, and this is something that kind of recently I started talking about, but it's interesting. If I bring this club to where the shaft's parallel to the ground, so here's my right hand and here's the club head. And so I move this club to here. And so here's the club head and here's my right hand. So how far did my hand move and how far did the club head move?
Well, the hand
Club
moved.
head probably moved more than that because it tracked on a lower line. It tracked that far, didn't it?
Yes, so it
Right?
moved several feet, and your hand moved a foot and a half, maybe.
Right. So my hands made me move this far of the club head, right?
Right.
That's about all. That's how far the hands move. So the interesting thing is, what moved the club this far? Well, it's not the hips and chest because they're not moving much. You know, you could say my chest maybe move 5 or 10 degrees, hips maybe move 5 or 10 degrees, not much. So what's moving that club, Laurie?
Hands and wrists and arms.
The hand and wrist. And, you know, I'm so happy now we have people out there doing research, and we've got Hack Motion, which has a sensor that goes on your left hand. You really can put it on either hand. But that was one of the things I was watching this morning, Laurie, with the PGA show going virtual this week. But it's pretty neat that people are starting to talk about, what do the hands do in the golf swing? And it's amazing that it's really the hands and the wrist that are moving this club head, not only the furthest, but what else are they doing?
Opening and closing the face.
But they're creating what?
A lot of speed.
Thank you. So they're going to create the speed. And what's interesting is when I put two hands on, now the two hands activate my core, and now that swinging motion pulls me around. So I've been kind of saying lately, the chest cannot swing the arms. The arm swing turns the chest. And that is especially true for an upper core player. So just want to go back into this Wright Balance. And here we see you. We looking at your picture here, Laurie?
Yes. So
Dr. David Wright. So talk about Doc Wright.
Dr. David Wright has studied the core and how it relates to golf. And he has some exercises for you to balance your core so it's square. And in that picture you were showing, the one I had not done the core exercises, and my right hip was higher than my left. Then after I did the exercises, my hips were level. So that's
Wow.
going to impact the club path. If my hips are level or if my right hip's higher, we're going to have a different club path.
Well, Wright Balance is by Dr. David Wright. 3 swing models, low, mid, and upper core. Laurie is mid, I'm upper. And there's your hips, Laurie, right?
Right.
And so if we draw a line here, your hips are like this right here, aren't they?
Right.
And now after the exercise, now they're more matching kind of your shoulders here, aren't they?
Right.
And that all changed just because of the exercises?
Just because of the exercises that take about 2 minutes to do, and it balances your core out.
So those exercises are being done by you getting into these 9 regions of the core, and we have 9 stance widths, don't we?
Right. So each number on the skeleton represents a stance width and the region that you're activating in that stance width. So we use all 9 to do the exercises.
So here I am standing in my 9 stance width, which is the top of the core over here. And it's amazing, Laurie, that 2 inches narrower, we're at the 1. And when I have my students stand in the 9, where's their weight?
Their weight's going to be more on the balls of their feet.
And then if I have them stand in their mid-core stance widths,
It's going to be more in the little bit behind the balls of your feet, more in the middle of your.
and then the low core is going to be in this blue area, isn't it?
Right,
Somewhere
exactly.
in the middle. So I think it's really interesting, Laurie, how this isn't out there yet, that people aren't aware of that your stance widths can change the balance in your feet.
I know it is amazing. Um, if you get measured and you want to get measured, you can actually feel if you go from the 1 stance width, you'll feel where the weight is in your feet. That's more back. And then we put you in your 9 stance width. You'll feel the weight go to your balls of your feet, and where your weight is in your feet really impacts how your body works. The more your weight's on the balls of your feet, you're going to have more verticals coming through. And the more it's towards your heels, you're going to have more rotation coming through. So it's a very important part of right balance.
So Laurie, these 9 stance widths on the left, they all have a corresponding stance width on a yardstick that we make for them after we've measured, or we get their height, weight, shoe size, and then we measure the shoulder and sternum width. And that goes into an algorithm that spits out these 9 stance widths. So when you're talking about doing the exercises, you're doing these in all 9 stance widths, correct?
Yes, we do. Each exercise is in all 9 stance width. I just start at number 1 width and go to 9. And the 2 exercises I do for each stance width.
Well, it's amazing to me how you and I know this, but if I just do my 9 stance width, if I just plank that against the wall and do push-ups, that if I have a bar on my hips all of a sudden are open. And then if I do the 8, so I've done 2 of my core region of this upper core. If I do that one, my hips are still open, but when I do that 3rd one, so I do all 3 of that core region, boom, my hips go square. I mean, it's almost like voodoo. It's crazy, but it's true, isn't it?
Yes, it is true that what you're saying, how your hips will open and square once you do all the core regions.
And even if I start on the 1 and just do the 1, I can disrupt my core, can I?
Yes.
And I would need to do the 2 and the 3. And at least I've done all 3, and I probably would get my hips back to square doing all 3, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would get your hips to square.
So when you do all of these, different things, that's what got your hips. That's what got your hips level now, isn't it?
Right. Right.
You went from your hips looking like this to your hips looking like this.
I didn't know we were going to use my backside
Well,
on camera.
yeah, I know. Sorry about that, but you know, we're trying to show something here, little sis. So, talk about the characteristics of the low core player, Laurie.
Well, right there, you have the bullet points. It's going to have the strongest grip. They're going to pivot around their trail leg. They will actually get their weight to the right more than any other of the three swings.
For a right-handed golfer.
For a right-handed golfer, yeah. And then as they come through, they're going to have a lot of hip rotation and a lot of shaft lean. And
Right.
Say latest release, but they have the most shaft lean of any core region.
And then we get to the mid-core player, which is you.
And the grip is going to be, it's just a hybrid of the upper and the lower. And the pivot's going to be center, and you're going to stay centered with your weight. Your weight's a little bit behind the balls of your feet. Your grip is a little more neutral, and there'll be some shaft lean at impact.
Right. And your hips are going to be rotated like an average tour player, which is about 40 to 45 degrees. That's why I put 35 to 55 degrees. And you're going to have that mid release point. And then I'm the upper core player. So we're going to have the most neutral grip, just a little bit stronger than neutral. We're going to pivot around that front or left leg for a right-handed golfer. We're going to have the least lateral motion and the most rotary in the backswing. And we're actually going to rotate into a jump, stand up, and have that earliest release. So if we just go and look at some video now of those three swing types, if we go back here and we look at you as our model swing, you know, we all wanted to look like you, Laurie.
I know. I have the pretty swing.
You have the pretty swing, but if we look at you here, and then I'm going to bring up one of my students, Kathleen. I'm making her famous. But you're going to see your swing, left arm right on plane, club just under the plane, right where power slot, I call it. And then there you are at impact. There's the pretty swing. I mean, that's the swing. You know, a lot of people would say Adam Scott has the best swing in golf. So here he is, and look at that left arm, and look at the club. His club's on plane all this whole time, and then look at him at impact, and then look at his club just right on the plane the whole time. I mean, pretty amazing. But then we look at Kathleen, which is most of your winners on the PGA Tour are mid-core like Adam Scott, but LPGA, you look at Kathleen, shut face player. You can see her club face dead closed here at the top. And then watch her shift and rotate like crazy. And then here she is at impact. There's your low core player. And then you throw in yours truly, and you're going to see me. I'm going to have my left arm on plane. I'm going to have my club underneath the plane in the power slot. And then you're going to see me rotate into a jump. So I'm rotating into that jump.
Notice how you have very little hip turn at impact, especially compared to Kathleen, who's
Right.
got lots. And
But
most teachers teach what Kathleen's doing with that lot of rotation in the hips. And it's only good for a fraction of the population.
well, you could hold a gun to my head. I can't do that. But it's amazing, Laurie, that I'm only running 90% after measuring over 1,000 people. That's me jumping, but I'm measuring 90% of my students upper core.
Wow.
So you get people coming to you. I could just throw a few swings up. You know, here's this gentleman we started with. if you look at him at impact, how rotated is he at impact? And everybody wants to get him more rotated. So he's not going to be like you or Kathleen, and then we look at, some other players that I've had recently. Some of these I'm not even sure. Here's John. So we look at John and we can see, look, he was a 7. We just don't see. Here's Graham, a lefty, but we just don't see people that rotated. Look at him at impact. He's just not rotated.
Right. That looks good.
And what's interesting to me, Laurie, is I really don't try to change too much anymore what people do. I figure the less I change now, the better. And I had, I think it's Ed Grant with Subconscious Golf. Got an email from him in this last week, and he saw some of my stuff on my YouTube channel and started saying, wow, you're teaching subconscious golf because you're letting people make their swings, and then we just have to tweak them a little bit and have them understand how their swing works, and don't drink that Kool-Aid I drank where I needed to look like you at impact and be more rotated.
Right.
Because that got me out of sequence where my club face was wide open at impact, because body rotation is a face opener. And next thing I knew, I was hitting it off the planet to the right.
Right. So the other big part of this that we could talk about is for it to be a low core player, this is a measurement that TPI always does, is how much you can rotate your
right
arm compared.
That's all I have.
Larry has. Larry can't rotate his at all. So to have that,
I have to lean back to get it.
That's cheating.
I know it's cheating, but I'm just saying, you get a student that can lay that back. Well, that's
another way to look to see what core region they're going to be. If they have a lot of external shoulder rotation, then they can have a lot of hip rotation at impact because they can slot the club in the right place.
They can get that right elbow further forward at coming into the ball. But really what I'm using today, Laurie, to determine is that's a test. I look at the video, and then we take them in that yardstick and those 9 stance widths. We get them right here and say, okay, push up as I'm pushing down, and how much strength do they have? The strength test is there. So really kind of those 3 are what I'm using today to really determine what number they are. But really, if we know they're upper, or if we know they're mid-core, or if we know they're low core, we understand the matches of their swing thanks to David Wright and Wright Balance, don't we?
Yes, he has put together a terrific program, and it all makes sense.
So I know you've been out to see him a lot, and I know he's got the new stuff. We've got this new Wright Balance bomb move where you grip the club and roll your shoulders in, right?
Yes.
And that can help people that their bodies are out of balance, to help get their bodies more in symmetry, right?
Right. Get you square. And that's kind of the move you're doing when you do the core exercises. Now he has an express core exercise, which takes about 2 minutes. When we first started doing it, it took probably 20 minutes to do them. Now he's got it down to a 2-minute time.
Yeah. And the back problems, stuff like that, you get measured by a Wright Balance fitter. You get your 9 stance widths, so you really exercise all 9 core regions. It's pretty amazing doing your core training, how that just from a physical standpoint can make you feel better too.
Right. It's definitely for mobility and stability.
Well, Laurie, always great to have you on the show. And just bringing back up these slides here. But we were talking about these stance widths. There's the yardstick. And there's Laurie. If you want more information on Laurie, or you'd like to go see her down in South Florida and get measured and understand how your natural swing works, because that's really what we're doing with Wright Balance. LaurieRinker.com. She's in Stuart, Florida. And I'd like to thank my sponsors, Titleist, FootJoy, the Ritz-Carlton Golf Club Orlando, and the Red Sky Golf Club in Vail, Colorado. Also, Flight Scope and Wright Balance. Well, Laurie, always great to have you on the show, little sis, and stay safe with all this COVID stuff. We've got 2021, and you know, we're all blessed that we can still get out and play golf and with what's going on. And
golf is booming now, so it's great.
No, it is great, but it's a safe thing we can do, and we're thankful that we can teach golf. We've got a lot of new people coming into the game now, and that's kind of fun, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I had 3 beginners this week alone, so.
Wow. All right, sis. Well, thanks for joining us. Till next Thursday, keep swinging.
Good night.